You've been feeling it, and you can't explain it. The old things don't fit. The normal rhythms feel off. It's like your soul knows something is about to change, but your mind hasn't caught up yet. This isn't just a season. It's the edge of a spiritual shift. And if you've felt the tension, the unrest, the pull to something deeper, this may be your divine confirmation. Don't ignore the stirring. It's trying to wake up what's been sleeping inside you. Something in you has been rising, quietly, relentlessly. It's not loud or dramatic, but it won't let you settle anymore. You used to be okay going through the motions. Church on Sunday, prayers before bed, moments of peace in between chaos. But now your spirit is restless, not in a destructive way, but in a divine one. You're not content just surviving. You're craving something deeper, something real. And that craving, that holy dissatisfaction, is the first sign that you're standing on the edge of a spiritual shift. You've noticed the signs. You don't get excited by shallow conversations anymore. You can't force yourself to laugh at what used to entertain you. You find yourself pulled toward silence, toward solitude, not because you're broken, but because something inside you is being rebuilt. God is doing a new thing in you, and your soul feels it before your life reflects it. Isaiah 43:19 says, "Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it?" The question isn't if it's happening, it's whether you're willing to notice. That's why the restlessness has increased. That's why your routine has started to feel too small. You're not crazy. You're not ungrateful. You're awakening. And awakenings are uncomfortable. They disrupt everything that's been dormant. They stretch every part of you that's gotten used to playing it safe. And make no mistake, this is personal. God isn't shifting your surroundings yet, because He's still shifting your spirit. He's stirring up the places you've silenced. He's reigniting the hunger you tried to tame. He's calling you to live like you were made for more, because you were. But before a shift happens around you, it begins within you. The breaking, the pressing, the stretching. It's not the enemy. It's God, making room for something new. You're being pulled out of comfort because comfort cannot carry what's coming. You're being shaken because stability without surrender breeds stagnation. You were never meant to live numb. You were never called to blend in. The anointing on your life demands awakening, and the shaking you feel, that's heaven waking you up. You've started to pray differently, not louder, not longer, but deeper. You're not asking for stuff anymore. You're asking for sight. You're asking to see what's real. You're asking to know what's holy. And God hears that cry. He always responds to hunger. Matthew 5:6. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. That stirring in your gut, that ache in your chest, that longing in your soul, it's not emotional confusion. It's spiritual preparation. You're being pulled out of shallow living because your spirit remembers who you are. There's something sacred rising from within. You're beginning to remember the sound of your calling. You're starting to hear your name again. The one heaven wrote long before you were wounded by this world. You're no longer satisfied by the surface because your soul was never meant to stay there. You were always made for the deep. And now, the deep is calling. You're not being punished. You're being positioned. You're not being rejected. You're being refined. You're not being overlooked. You're being overshadowed by the presence of God so He can recalibrate your heart. You're not missing out. You're being marked. And yes, it feels like breaking, but it's really a birthing, a new awareness, a holy shift, a fresh oil beginning to pour. The people around you may not understand. They may say you've changed, and you have. You've tasted something eternal, and it ruined you for the temporary. You've glimpsed what it means to walk in real purpose, and now you can't pretend anymore. You're not better than them, but you've been burdened with a fire that won't let you stay asleep. You're no longer okay with doing just enough to feel spiritual. You want to be aligned. You want to walk in step with heaven. You want to live like Jesus actually lives in you. This is what awakening feels like. Not a revival service, not a social media post, not a rush of emotion. It's slow, it's deep, it's personal, it's often silent. It's God interrupting everything you thought you needed so He can give you what your soul has really been longing for. Him, not His blessings, not His answers, just Him. And if this is where you are, if you've been feeling the pull but haven't known what to call it, now you know. You're not losing your mind. You're finding your spirit. You're waking up. You're shifting. And every part of you that has been sleeping under the weight of survival is about to rise under the authority of the Spirit. So don't run from the stirring. Don't silence the ache. Don't numb the tension. It's sacred. It's holy. It's the whisper of a new season. It's the sign that something is about to break, not to destroy you, but to release you. God is not trying to punish you. He's trying to awaken you. And if you'll stay in the pressing, if you'll remain in the wrestle, you'll find that this wasn't just a moment of discomfort. It was the beginning of everything. You've been wondering why you feel distant, why the people you used to laugh with don't get you anymore, why the places you used to thrive in suddenly feel foreign. It's like the rhythm of your life changed, but no one else heard the new song, and you've been tempted to call it rejection, to internalize it, to grieve it. But listen, this isn't rejection, it's realignment. This is what it feels like when your spirit starts growing faster than your surroundings. God is disconnecting you from what's familiar, not because you've failed, but because you've outgrown what once served you. That version of you, the one who needed approval, the one who played small to stay accepted, the one who silenced conviction to keep peace. It's dying, and every time something falls away that used to define you, it feels like grief, but it's not death. It's resurrection. You've noticed the conversations feel shallow. You sit in rooms full of noise, but your heart craves depth. You try to show up like you used to, but it drains you. You try to engage, but your spirit keeps whispering, this isn't your space anymore. And you wonder, God, why am I becoming so sensitive, so withdrawn, so quiet? Because He's shifting your frequency. You're tuning into a higher clarity. You're learning how to discern spiritual noise from divine voice. You're not being isolated by accident. You're being insulated on purpose. Jesus did this too. In Luke chapter 5:16. But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. He pulled away, not because He didn't love people, but because He had to hear the Father. And now, so do you. Your soul is craving a signal that doesn't come from popularity. It comes from presence. You are being drawn back to the secret place because the next thing God is about to do through you cannot be sustained by performance, only by purity. And yes, it hurts, watching people move on while you stand still. watching doors close that once brought you joy, watching relationships shift, and having no explanation other than, I just don't feel aligned anymore. But trust this, what God is removing, He's replacing with something eternal, something weighty, something rooted in the kingdom, not in comfort. The ache in your spirit is holy. It's not depression, it's divine transition. It's what it feels like when God breaks the shell you outgrew and calls you into something wider, deeper, more real. You're not being left behind. You're being pulled ahead. You're not being shut out. You're being set apart. And when you stop fighting to keep what's walking away, you'll find that your hands are suddenly free to carry what's coming. God has to get you alone to teach you how to hear again, how to move again, how to live unchained from expectations that once controlled your every move. He's weaning you off applause so that you learn how to follow conviction. He's separating you from crowds so that you learn to walk by the cloud. Because the next season won't be built by consensus. It will be built by courage. And you can't bring everyone with you. You love them. You bless them. But you don't belong to them. You belong to Him. And when the calling on your life shifts, the circle around your life often shrinks. But don't panic. Jesus changed the world with 12, and one of them still betrayed Him. The assignment doesn't require numbers. It requires obedience. So when you feel that disconnect, don't rush to fix it. Don't explain it away. Don't beg for what God is gently removing. Let Him prune. Let Him cut. Let Him sever ties that once gave you identity, so He can root your identity in something unshakable. In Him, you're on the edge of a spiritual shift, and everything unstable is being tested. The places that coddled you will now convict you. The voices that once comforted you will now confuse you. Because when God starts speaking more clearly, every counterfeit voice begins to fade. And that fading, it's not failure, it's freedom. You're not supposed to carry everyone. You're not called to be available to every invitation. You're not assigned to every room. Some rooms were only meant for your past, and staying there would silence your future. That disconnection you're feeling is God's mercy, not His absence. His voice is leading you out of what's safe into what's sacred. So stop mourning the version of you that fit in. You were never meant to fit. You were meant to shake things, to carry weight, to break cycles. And now, the weight of your next is pushing against the walls of your now. That's why nothing fits. That's why you feel misunderstood. That's why peace only comes in His presence, because it's the only place left where you recognize yourself. This is what shifting feels like. It's disorienting at first. It feels like falling apart, but it's really falling into place. You're not who you were, and that's not a crisis. It's a calling. So breathe. Let go of what was. Make space for what is, because the shift is already happening, and you're already becoming. You thought you were fine. You thought you had healed. You thought you had forgiven. But lately, God's been peeling back layers you didn't even know you had. It's like your soul is being X-rayed, and everything buried is rising to the surface, not to shame you, but to set you free. And that exposure you feel, that's not the enemy. That's the mercy of God, revealing what can't go with you into the next. Because real spiritual shifts don't just elevate you, they excavate you. They reach down into the soil of your soul and start uprooting everything that's been growing alongside the truth. bitterness disguised as boundaries, fear disguised as wisdom, pride disguised as self-protection. God is not just preparing you to rise, He's preparing you to rise clean, and that requires confrontation. You've started seeing things in yourself you didn't want to see, not because God is angry, but because He loves you too much to let those things stay. The offense you've carried for years, the envy you've hidden with humility, the patterns that look like discipline but are actually avoidance. He's not condemning you, He's revealing the roots. Because only what's exposed can be healed. And this is what healing actually looks like. Uncomfortable, undignified, holy exposure in the presence of a loving God who refuses to leave you bound. Hebrews 12:6 says, "The Lord disciplines those He loves." That's not punishment, that's preparation. He's not trying to humiliate you, He's trying to liberate you. Because where He's taking you, secrets can't survive, masks can't last, pretending won't work. The next level of glory requires the next level of honesty, and that honesty starts with you, before God, raw and real. And yes, it feels like breaking, but remember, breaking isn't always destruction. Sometimes it's construction. Sometimes God has to break the box you put yourself in, just to build the vessel He designed you to be. That moment when you cry, and don't even know why, that's Him. That wave of repentance that comes out of nowhere, that's Him. That awareness that your habits need to shift, your rhythms need to change, your priorities need to realign, that's Him. You don't need to hide from it. You don't need to run from it. This is not exposure for embarrassment. This is exposure for elevation, because purity is not about being perfect. It's about being honest. And God is awakening you to a level of spiritual clarity where you can no longer afford to pretend. You can no longer dance around conviction. You can no longer call compromise grace. You're too close now. You're too marked. You're too anointed to keep holding on to what's trying to die. And what's wild is, you asked for this, not with words, but with your hunger, with your tears, with your quiet whisper, God, whatever it takes. And now, He's answering, not with lightning, not with applause, but with a mirror. And in that mirror, He's showing you what still needs to fall. Not because He's disappointed, but because He's determined to finish what He started in you. Philippians 1:6 says, "He who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it." And this painful pruning is part of that good work. You're not broken beyond repair. You're being refined for release. You're being made ready in the hidden places. And what you conquer here, in secret, will become authority in the places God sends you next. So don't despise the exposure. Don't resist the light. Let it shine. Let it reveal. Let it heal. Because the more He cleanses you, the more clearly you hear Him. And the more clearly you hear Him, the more confidently you move. Not as someone trying to prove anything, but as someone who knows they've been purified by the presence of the living God. You're not the same. You can't be. The shift is undoing the version of you that learned how to survive and resurrecting the version that was always called to thrive. You're feeling the pressure, not because God is far, but because He's closer than ever, pressing on everything that doesn't belong in your next. This is sacred ground. This is holy surgery. And if you'll stay on the table, if you'll keep surrendering, even when it stings, you'll come out of this clearer, lighter, freer. Because every spiritual shift begins with a shaking, and you, right now, are standing in the tension between the old you and the real you. Let him finish the work. The next part of your awakening depends on it. You know what God is asking you to do, and that's what makes it so hard. Because this time, obedience isn't about singing louder or praying longer. It's about letting go. It's about walking away from what's familiar, about releasing what you once begged God to give you, about trusting Him in the silence after the yes. And this is where the shift either expands or stalls, when obedience becomes expensive. You're not wrestling with clarity, you're wrestling with surrender. You've heard Him. You feel the tug in your chest. You sense the divine nudge. But your flesh is screaming, "What if I lose everything?" And the Spirit whispers back, "What if you gain everything eternal?" This isn't about comfort. This is about calling. And the cost of your next level is your last idol. That's why the tension is so intense. God is pressing on the very thing you've used to define yourself. That relationship, that plan, that role, that platform. And He's not doing it to be cruel. He's doing it because anything you love more than Him will eventually limit what He can do through you. He's not trying to take it to punish you. He's asking for it to purify you. Obedience in this season feels lonely. It feels slow. It feels countercultural. But make no mistake, this is where the shift solidifies. When you obey without applause, when you say yes when no one sees, when you walk away even if people don't understand, when you lay it down without knowing if He'll give it back. Because trust isn't just built in answered prayers, it's built in unanswered obedience. This is where Abraham laid Isaac on the altar. This is where Esther said, "If I perish, I perish." This is where Jesus said, "Not my will, but yours be done." This is the place where spiritual awakenings become more than feelings. They become decisions, not temporary passion, long-term obedience. And this is the part no one claps for. This is the part that won't go viral. This is the part where your flesh dies quietly, where the door closes softly, where you sit in your room after obeying and wonder, "God, did that even matter?" And heaven whispers back, "Yes, that was the sound of surrender." And I heard every note. John 14:15 says, "If you love me, keep my commands." Not if you feel ready, not if it makes sense, not if it's convenient. Obedience is the proof of intimacy. And in this season, God is calling you to walk by spirit, not sight, to trust what He said more than what you see, to follow the voice of conviction even when it costs your comfort, your rhythm, your reputation. Because this time, your breakthrough isn't coming through a blessing, it's coming through obedience. This is how heaven shifts things, one step at a time, one yes at a time, one sacrifice at a time. And every time you obey, you break off another layer of what used to hold you back. You're learning that obedience isn't weakness, it's warfare. Every time you choose what's holy over what's easy, you silence hell. Every time you let go of your timing to trust His, you destroy pride. Every time you say, "I'll do it anyway," you activate favor that logic can't unlock. And yes, it's stretching you. It's undoing the way you used to move. You're not relying on instincts anymore. You're relying on instruction. You're not asking, "Is this safe?" You're asking, "Is this God?" And even when you're scared, you go anyway. Even when your voice shakes, you speak anyway. Even when your heart aches, you obey anyway, because the reward isn't in the result, it's in the surrender. You don't obey because of what you'll get. You obey because of who He is. And the more you obey, the more you realize the shift wasn't about elevation, it was about alignment. Not becoming more seen, but becoming more like Him. So don't despise this part. Don't curse the silence. Don't second guess the letting go. This is where the deepest transformation happens, when no one sees it but God. This is the obedience that makes the demons nervous. This is the kind that shifts atmospheres. This is the yes that unlocks generations after you. Because you didn't just obey when it was convenient, you obeyed when it was crucifying. And that is the kind of obedience that marks the beginning of revival. Not the one around you, but the one within you. There's a fire in you now, not a wildfire of emotion, not a spark from hype, but a deep, slow-burning, spirit-fed flame that refuses to go out, even when everything around you tries to suffocate it. You've changed. You know it. You don't need someone to confirm it. Something in you is alive that was dead before. You hear clearer. You see deeper. You love harder. And you walk lighter, not because your battles stopped, but because your soul has awakened to something eternal. You're no longer living on autopilot. You're moving with purpose. You don't chase. You discern. You don't perform. You surrender. You're not interested in being known by man. You want to be trusted by God. And this shift that started quietly, in your heart, in your spirit, in the still places where no one clapped and no one noticed, has now become who you are. You're not waiting for a move of God. You are one. This is the final sign that the shift has happened. Not because your life is perfect, not because everything feels smooth, but because you've stopped turning back. You've stopped romanticizing Egypt. You've stopped bargaining with comfort. You've stopped questioning whether you were called. You've stepped forward, not with fanfare, not with certainty, but with faith. And that is what makes heaven lean in. Your prayers sound different now. You don't just ask for open doors. You ask for endurance. You don't ask for platforms. You ask for purity. You don't ask for attention. You ask for wisdom. That's what the shift does. It refines your desires. It purifies your motives. It burns away everything that made your faith convenient and leaves you with fire that cannot be quenched. You're not who you were, and that's not a loss. That's a gift. You're lighter now because you let go of the lies. You're stronger now because you chose obedience over opinion. You're clearer now because God removed what clouded your vision. And even if no one else sees it, even if the people around you still treat you like who you used to be, God knows. Heaven sees. And your spirit rejoices, not because you've arrived, but because you're finally aligned. And now you walk differently. You carry weight. You speak with substance. You don't entertain foolishness because your time has been purchased by obedience. You don't beg for belonging because you've been sealed by the Spirit. You don't apologize for your convictions because you know what they cost you. And your eyes, they shine with that holy glow, the kind you can't fake, the kind you can't manufacture. It only comes from the fire. So, if you've made it this far, if this word resonated with the deepest part of your soul, if your spirit's been leaping the entire time, let me tell you something you need to hear. You're not crazy. You're not overreacting. You're not imagining things. You are shifting. Heaven has been walking you through a process that no one else could explain. A stripping, a stirring, a sifting, a sacred remaking of your soul. You thought you were breaking, but you were being reborn. This isn't a season. This is a setup. This isn't a breakdown. This is a breakthrough. This isn't a coincidence. This is your confirmation. The fire inside you is real. And now it's time to stop hiding it. Stop shrinking to fit into places you've outgrown. Stop denying the weight you carry. Stop waiting for permission. This is your release. This is your awakening. Walk in it. With humility. With power. With fire in your bones and purity in your steps. Let your obedience preach louder than your words. Let your transformation speak before you ever touch a mic. Let your hunger make others thirsty. Let your presence stir atmospheres, not because of you, but because of the one who lives inside of you. You've stood on the edge of a spiritual shift long enough. Now step into it. You were born for this.